Hello and welcome back to the Kitchen Table Modelers Workshop. My name's Ian and this is my modelling setup where I do all my kit building. So today, review time. We've got a kit from AFV Club. It's their 1/35th scale M728 Combat Engineers Vehicle. Now, anybody that's watching the channel before will know that I've got a bit of an interest in combat engineer vehicles, especially if they're based on an main battle tank chassis or on the main battle tank itself. So this kit's definitely in my area of interest. It's based on the M60 series battle tank chassis from the United States, and it is circa 1965 in through the 70s, so it's Vietnam conflict era vehicle. I didn't actually know that this kit had been tooled until I saw it, and when I did see it, managed to pick it up for a really good keen price, second hand off eBay. And I thought, well, I'm interested in it, you guys might be interested in it, so I got a hold of it and here it is for review. So enough waffling for me, let's get the kit on the table, get the box open and see what we get inside. So, on the table, and here we are. And as always with the AFV Club, they've got some fantastic box art. So we've got the kit here, well, the vehicle here with the boom all stowed away in its driving position. Looking fantastic. So we are looking at kit number AF 35254, 1/35th scale from AFV Club. Obviously M728 Combat Engineers Vehicle. It's got the M135 165mm short barrel demolition gun, M9 dozer blade, A-frame crane boom and winch. Comes with copper chain, A-frame crane boom, can be posed, expanded or collapsed. If you look on the side, then we've got some really nice renders of a built model in overall green scheme and a QR code for more information, I would imagine. And if we look on the end, it's just a repeat of the top. On the other side, again, it's just the repeat. You've got your usual blurb, obviously not intended for any children under the age of 14. Really striking paint scheme here with this yellow striped dozer blade. And the final side is just the same. So it's quite a large box, sturdy box. AFV Club always have good boxings, and it's a top opener. And when you look inside, you are greeted with a plethora of, well, obviously instructions, and then a plethora of plastic. So we'll do the usual and go for the instructions first. First off, you get a beautiful colour print, which you can frame if you want. It's really nice. It gives you the overall look and a general sense of weathering on the vehicle, and a bit of cues of, you know, colours of optics and whatnot. So that's really nice to get that. Colour instructions on the front. So you've got a bit of blurb. So let's see if I can zoom you in a bit. There we go. So I don't know if that'll focus. So you've got it in English and Chinese. There you go, them that want to freeze frame that, you can and read it. But basically it's based on the M60 chassis, and it was entered production in 1965 and deployed to Vietnam. Production ended in 1987. There was 291 vehicles produced. So it saw combat in obviously Vietnam, in the Persian Gulf in the 90s, and in 2000 it was transferred to reserve units. So turning the page over, we've got usual sort of tools and symbols illustration. We've got a colour list which gives you a few colour choices. So you've got GSI Creos, so Mr. Colour, Hobby Colour and Mr. Colour Spray. You've got Humbrol, Revell and Life Colour, so in amongst all that you'll be able to find colours to suit. And then you've got a lovely pictorial diagram of the M60 Patton main battle tank and all the chassis. So you've got everything from the original M60 through to the Combat Engineers Vehicle, the M60 Armoured Vehicle Launched Bridge, and then you've got a lot of the Israeli M60 tanks, Turkish ones, and even one for Republic of China brackets Taiwan. So an interesting vehicle through and through. So if we look at part 1, then straight into the chassis. So we've got some holes to bore out here, and then we're going straight into the suspension units, and we've also got parts here that are for the dozer blade, I should imagine. Now I've built a couple of M60s with a dozer on it, so I can recognize these parts as being part of the dozer blade assembly. Part 2, we're putting on the torsion bar suspension. It looks like if we glue it properly, or don't glue it, we may have active suspension, which is a really nice touch. Part 3, we're putting on dampers and final drives, and then obviously part 4, we're repeating the process on the other side, finishing off the suspension units. Moving on to part 5, if I can get the pages to open. We are doing a little more with the rear of the vehicle, putting on some hatches and some towing eyes, recovering eyes, and a trailer towing point. Part 6, we're building up the road wheels and the drive sprocket. I do believe the idler wheel for this series of tank was the same as the road wheel, so that makes it easier. You don't have to lay anything special by. You've also got the return rollers here. Part 7, then we've got some interior parts, which is quite nice for the driver's section. So we can actually detail that up, put a driver in, and get a lot more interest in the vehicle. So yeah, it's really, really nice to see. We've got a few holes to drill here for part 8. And we're also getting color call outs for the optics, so we can get that reflective coating on the glasses. So really, really nice. Part 9, we're moving on to finishing off the deck of the tank, so the interior and the exterior, and then that's getting all joined together. So we've got the front hull piece with a turret ring, and then the rear engine deck and the louver doors on the back coming together, and a few small detail parts. So yeah, really quite an interesting vehicle, and interesting that all the, for moving on to part 11, that all the louvered engine covers are all separate pieces, so it gives you an awful lot of options should you be able to get a resin power pack kit to open this up and make a real interesting diorama of it. Also, we've got all the grab handles or lifting handles for these separate as well, so an awful lot of detail here, and I should imagine some quite small parts, so a lot of care is going to be needed. So that's part 11, finishing off those details, and then part 12, we've got the tracks going on. Now, it would appear the vinyl tracks in the kit, but that doesn't matter because these were always under tension, so they didn't sag, so vinyl tracks should suffice. Part 13, we're putting on the track guards. Part 14, putting on all the stowage bins and track guard supports. Part 15, we've got the air intakes. 16, we've got the cabin heater exhaust. And we've got some more track guard support going on, and then obviously some other possibly track guard supports as well. So that's part 16, so you're fairly motoring on through the build. Part 17, we're working with detail parts, so we've got recovery chains here, and more detail parts for part 18. Not quite sure what that is. It's probably the travel lock for the bulldozer blade to lift, hold it up whilst it's tracking. So parts 19, we've got the elevated driving lights, and then we've got the light guards, and then part 20, we've got the hydraulic ram assemblies for the bulldozer, and it's saying don't glue here when you're putting these caps down, so it is intended to be a moving part, which is really, really nice. Part 21, we've got the dozer blade itself, front and rear. And then part 22, we're finishing off the dozer assembly and attaching it to the tank chassis itself. And there's quite a lot of don't glue symbols here, so it would appear that this is going to be fully functional and posable, which is really, really nice. So when you finish the dozer, we're moving on part 25 through to 27, and we're working on the demolition gun, getting that built together and putting it in the turret. Again, not gluing it, so it's looking to be posable. Part 28, it looks like we've got option parts here, have we? Possibly. So you've got a mantlet with or without the canvas cover, and then you've got the rubber bellows for the recoil. 29, more detail for the turret, so you've got the two hatches, lifting eyes and brackets for the A-frame lifting crane. Parts 30, we're finishing off the fume extractor for the gun, maybe, oh no, sorry, the hydraulic rams for the A-frame, getting them attached to the turret. And then we're working part 31, we're working on the winch, and 32 we're installing the winch and getting ready, I think, for getting the A-frame installed. Parts 33, we've got some rope to make up, detail parts, turret bustle baskets and jerry can fuel holders. Parts 36, we're moving on to the commander's coupler with the 50 cal. So you've got uppers and lowers, and it's possibly movable as well, looking at the instructions, which is really, really nice. Finishing up with part 38, where you've got the searchlight, which is a really striking feature of this series of tanks, and something that I certainly would be quite happy to make, and looking very detailed as well. Parts 39. Parts 39, then we are looking at bringing the turret together, and then we're making up in parts 40 through to 42 all the necessary parts for the A-frame lifting gantry. And then parts 43, we're installing it, building it all together. Again, it's saying don't glue, so you can move it stowed or deployed. Part 44, putting on the winch hook, and then doing all the small greeblies and whatnot you need. So this is obviously the locking brackets, the travel locks for the boom here, if you're going to have it deployed. Now when I build this, it's going to be deployed. I will probably even think I'll be building it in a diorama. So parts 45 is snatch blocks, and then 46 is making the aerial at stretch sprue, which is fantastic, and putting the turret on. And then the final page, you've got an exploded parts diagram, and then on the rear you've got your three options, so A, B and C. So A is Colorado 1967, B is 1969 in Vietnam, and C is the 25th Infantry Division Hawaii, which is quite a striking vehicle with a black and yellow blade and the yellow drive sprockets. So yeah, fantastic. What an awful lot to get through. Let's have a look at the plastic and see what we get. Right, so we've got the box on the table. Let's have a look. These are heat sealed bags, so we'll have to give them a quick cut to get into them. Yeah, scalpel, and then we'll trim this open. So starting with Sprue A. This is the turret. Now I think, looking at the instructions, we're only going to need to use the turret bottom, because I see a different turret in the bag here that we've got to get to yet. Got the mantlet, part of the gun breech, and part of the rear turret vent assembly there. And if you look at the turret, it's beautifully molded, lovely well detail, and also, I don't know if the camera and the light's picking up, absolutely fantastic cast detail. Now these were fully cast hulls and turrets, so yeah, really, really nice. And I should imagine it looks quite coarse at the moment, but once you get a layer of paint on that, it will calm it down. But when you do come to weathering it, the options are going to be huge, because it will take weathering washes and oils and whatnot beautifully. So anyway, there's the turret. That's sprue A. Let's have a look at the next sprue, which is the actual turret we're going to be using. So let's just give this bag a wee open and we can have a proper look at what we're going to be seeing. There we go. Certainly got tough bags anyway. Right, so now first thing I'll say is the cast texture on this turret is a lot more muted and restrained compared to the last turret. Molded really nice, quite sharp, little flash, but definitely not as pronounced. Now for me this is a better, more in scale cast texture for the turret, so I'm actually really liking this. But if you compare where the lifting eyes are welded to this turret compared to the last turret, these are a little bit softer molded, not as sharp. But in saying that, easily rectified if you wanted to go in there and bring them back up to scratch with a bit of glue and whatnot. But I'm happy with this, so yeah, really nice. Nice hard plastic as well. The next sprue we've got is the lifting frame. So let's have a look. Now I've built a number of AFV Club vehicles, and they're always part heavy, and that they do tend to use a lot of parts for putting the models together, but it shows in the overall quality of the model. So there's the sprue. So we've got a really substantial solid molded A-frame with some beautiful fine molded down the sides of the obviously grab handles. We've got things at wire ends, we've got pulleys, we've got the parts for the top bustles, the turret bustle baskets. There is a little bit of flash here and there, I'm not going to lie. If you look at that, there's a little bit of flash under that on the wire bustle basket. On the whole though, a really nice crisp, you can hear that nice hard plastic. Right, next big frame is like rumbled about, torn up. So this is frame B. Again, nice big frame. So you've got the front hull upper or front glasses plate, you've got the track guards, and you've got the bulk of the stowage boxes and air intakes here. Looking at this, then you've got lovely cast detail again. It's a little sharper than what we see on the turret that's going to be used for this project, but still it's nice. It's reasonably in scale and it will be okay. There are a few ejector pin marks. You're not going to see them. It's the inside of a tank, isn't it? But obviously a lot of parts recesses here for moulding up or making up the inside of the tank. Nice and crisp, nice and clear. All parts are in keeping, and you know the bolt detail is really sharp on them. So this is going to take obviously dry brushing pin washes beautifully. AFV Club at its best, and AFV Club, don't underestimate them. They're a really good model company. Now, not sure what we're doing with this frame. You've got some boxes here, and this looks like some explosive reactive armor plates, but not for this kit. It might be that some of these smaller parts are needed. This is frame W. I'm not going to get it out because there's not much of any great interest here, but still, the wooden texture on the boxes is nice all the same. Right, next frame that we do need to look at is the frame that contains the dozer blade. Again, this is sealed in a different way again, so I have to say I do prefer bags that likes of Meng do in the boxings that are resealable, so you can have a good look at your parts and then when you're finished get them put away for safekeeping. There we go, that one opened up. So this is frame AA. Front of your dozer blade, rear of your dozer blade arms and actuators, your ripper part of the blade, so this is your hardened steel ripper for doing all the hard work, linkages, travel locks, all really nicely molded, quite flash free as well, to be fair, not too much burring, and ejector pin marks pretty much devoid of them, so really nice. And this super smooth, so if you painted this with a bright steel and then did some weathering to fade it down to a rusty steel, hairspray chipping over it and then chip back your green paint, you're going to end up with a beautifully worn blade finish. And obviously if you're modeling it in Vietnam and Southeast Asia, then it was that kind of hard orangey red clay, so you'd be able to build that up with pastels and whatnot, pigments, and get a beautiful diorama using this kit, and quite an unusual one as well. I don't know if many people will be modeling this. Right, wheels, they are just the same as any other wheels for this. They're very detailed. I'll not bother getting them out, but you should be able to see the level of detail you've got. Beautiful bolt relief, nice recessed detail as well, all well in scale, very nicely molded, no flash, little burring. They should go together fine. Right, now here's an interesting sprue, and the one I was looking for. This is the rear engine deck detail, and quite an unusual way that AFV Club have chosen to model that for this kit. Usually you'll see the M60 series with a one-piece deck detail with all the grab handles molded in situ. Not so here. Right. So this is frame K. Again, you've got that beautiful cast textured finish on this. Absolutely stunning. Bolt relief is beautiful, sharp, crisply molded. Nice hard plastic, very finely molded lifting eyes, grab handles. These will be your air intake filter units, and then beautifully molded. They're not molded open, but they're not far off. They're absolutely stunningly molded grills and louver grills. Really impressed with that. Some very fine detail here in the kit. I can do that, you might see a bit better. Yeah, really nice. Searchlight parts, I need to get a mirror finish in there because they were a highly polished mirror, so it might be a bit of chrome pen going in there, but yeah, absolutely stunning. And no ejector pins on anything, well, very few anyway, nothing you're going to see. Yeah, really impressed with that. Yeah, really impressed with that. Right, we'll leave that for what's that to last. So this is probably a common bag. I'll take my words back. No, this looks like to be a specialist bag for this kit. So this is part E. So we have got, which I'm going to leave in the bag, a 50 cal machine gun, absolutely stunningly molded, slide molded as well because you've got a hollow end in it. Stunning, really nice. and then that is in with Sprue frame E. So you've got the lower half of the commander's coupler here. You've got turret bustle baskets for the M60 series tank, not for the one we're doing, because obviously we've got the big winch sitting on the back, and this might be some of the winch assembly here. Turret hatch, some of the driver's detail, lift-in eyes, switches, another M50 cal there, and lots of very, very fine detail here. Absolutely stunningly moulded. Really, really impressive stuff, this. Really impressive stuff. Right, moving on to the next sprue. We're nearly there. You're going to end up with some spares for your spares box with this lot. So this is Sprue C. So you've got your rear hull louvers where the exhaust are. You've also got a raised exhaust, which I'm not sure if this vehicle will be fitted with, but it'll be interesting to see. You've got, not sure what parts they are. They're probably protectors for the rear drive sprockets, front hatch, floor pan hatch. We've got various lift-in highs, attachment points, bracketry, you know, possibly even a fire extinguisher or an accumulator or something. We've got the lovely hollowed out track guard supports. Lots of really, really fine handles. If we look at those, if we can get that in focus, beautifully fine handles for the stowage bins. Couple of the torsion bar suspension systems as well. Generally really, really nice, flash free, beautifully moulded. Very, very impressive. And AFV Club are an impressive company. They've got a good reputation for producing high quality kits at a reasonable price. But don't fool yourself, you need to be well versed at building armour kits before you tackle AFV Club, because they're not easy kits to build. They've got a lot of parts and you need to know what you're doing, but if you're at that level, they're so enjoyable to do. Anyway, Sprue F, so we've got the clear parts and they are crystal clear. Searchlight parts, your vision blocks. We've got the, interestingly, we've got the commander's cupola, top half, with your clear plastic vision slots in it. So we'll be able to colour those up, mask them off on the outside, and then you're going to have them unmasked when you finish painting and they're ready to go. So that's a really interesting way of tackling that problem. Most companies, when they mould this, it's just moulded out of solid styrene, and you have to paint in the vision blocks with either gloss black or Tamiya clear blue over silver. So this is a different way of doing it altogether. Very nice clear parts though. I'm going to put them straight back into the plastics. I don't want to ruin or scratch them. And then finally we've got a double sprue of more running gear and all the torsion bar suspension units. And there is slide moulding that's happened here, so let's have a quick look. I'll take one out, leave one in. So it's fun opening up sprue bags. So this is Sprue Tree D. So as I said, a little bit of flash here and there. You see that on the wheels? It just comes off with your fingernail. Again, really, really nicely moulded. Beautiful bolt detail, beautiful relief detail. I'm not sure if it's these wheels we're going to need or the ones we've already seen. They've obviously got some separate tyre or rim detail to go together. There are, if we can see those, it's my hand, there are the lifting handles that are going onto the individual louver covers for the rear deck. Absolutely beautifully moulded, very, very fine attachment points and very, very fine moulding indeed. All the torsion bar suspension units, final drives, various lifting points and whatnot, all nicely moulded up to the standard you'd expect for AFV Club. And you do expect a lot from AFV Club because they are a really good manufacturer. Now we've got a bag here with lots and bits of pieces in it with the lower hull. So let's see what we've got. There we go. Get this kit out. Right. So start with the lower hull. Again, beautiful hard plastic, really nice cast detail on it. A little bit of a mold line here maybe, but nothing you can't smooth out with a sanding sponge, and then use a little bit of glue just to tap it with a brush to get rid of it, to blend it into the cast texture of the hull. On the whole though, that is a really nice part, even down to having all the casting marks in it. Yeah, it's absolutely lovely. Vinyl tracks, well, who doesn't like a good pair of vinyl tracks? But these are a reasonably good pair of vinyl tracks. There's not too many release parts on it. I don't know if you're going to be able to glue them. Some tracks you can actually work really nicely with your extra thin cements or super glue, but they're soft, they're malleable, that they should go on. If you really want to, you can buy yourself a replacement set of Sprue tracks. I don't know if you're going to need to in this instance. Right, what have we got here? This is rubber parts. There we go, open that up. So we have got some form of cabling here. And I'll tell you what that is the cable for the searchlight, a power cable for the searchlight. Molded in vinyl, which is really nice, saves you having to worry about doing it with lead wire. And then we've got a rubberized mantlet cover, which is quite nice. So that's how you're going to have your posable gun. There's a little bit of flash in it, but nothing that can't be cleaned away. And we've also got the same rubberized mantlet cover for the commander's cupola. In realism, you're probably going to set the gun pose and glue it shut and then work with it that way. Now, bag full of small O-rings. I'm not quite sure what this is for. It might be for the wheels, don't know, but they're going to stay in there. Now, next we have a spring, which will be the recoil spring for the gun. Bit gimmicky, but it's all good all the same. And then we've got the bellows, which are really nicely molded and will look nice. Turned aluminium barrel, which is fantastic. Absolutely all credit to AFV Club for including that. It's worth its weight in gold. Beautifully turned. You've got rifle in detail in the barrel end, and it will go together nicely. And then finally you've got this lovely copper chain for the front detail of the tank. So there we go. Oh, sorry, nearly forgot. Photo etch parts and decal sheets. I'm not going to get them out because I can tell you the decals will be really nice. It's printed in Taiwan and it's copyrighted 2018, so even a year before Scalemates is saying that they were made. Cable that looks to be quite nice and not too fluffy, so that should work really well for setting up your winch cables and whatnot for the lifting crane. And then we've got wire mesh for the bustle baskets and small details. There we go, small details and the main mantlet cover surround fixing ring. Made by Voyager Model of all people, so that'll be really good as well. I've worked with their PE before and it's very nice. So there's the kit parts. So I'll get all the stuff back in the box and then we can come back on to me and have up sum up with some closing thoughts. So there we are, AFV Club's 1/35th scale M728 Combat Engineers Vehicle. Right, thoughts. Very interesting subject would be my first thought, but that's me being biased. I'm really interested in all these sorts of vehicles, but realistically a very interesting subject from an interesting era of combat, I suppose. The Vietnam conflict spanned quite a significant amount of time. America was heavily involved with it, so there's obviously going to naturally be a lot of interest, and to have a combat engineer type vehicle that can be posed with so many other armoured vehicles that would have been used in that theatre of operation is a really interesting thought for a modeller. You could pose this recovering a Sheridan, you could pose it recovering an M113 armoured support vehicle, armoured infantry fighting vehicle, sorry. Any number of vehicles that were used throughout that genre and through into operations in the Persian Gulf. It's just a huge subject that can be modelled. The kit itself is fantastic. I know I say this an awful lot, but it really is. AFV Club have been around for quite a time. They've got a good reputation for producing high detail model kits. Not for the beginner. I mean, I have to, emphasize that you're going to have had a few model kits under your belt before you brave one of these fellows, because there are lots and lots of parts. What ordinary model companies would mold as a single part, say for example the rear deck, where you've got all those louvered grills going in separate, and then the lift and handles for them going in separate. Tamiya, Academy, all the others, the majority of the companies that have the M60 series of tanks will just mold that whole back deck in one piece. Bob's your uncle, gone. So AFV Club are taking the time to make them individual parts, which increases the detail level, and it's going to be really good. But you've got to be able to build something like this. You can't just run into this after doing a couple of Tamiya tanks and think you can beat the world, because you can't. This is going to take a long, careful build to get a really good model, but you're going to end up with a really good model. So is it worth it? Definitely yes. If you're into this sort of genre or this type of vehicle, I don't think anybody else tools it, so it's a no-brainer. Price point, it's even more a no-brainer. Now in UK, I think this is retailing around the £55 to £60 price mark, and this is 2023, which is really good for an armour kit with this level of detail. If you look at some of the high-end armour kits, you're looking way over £100 now for a top-end kit. So the price point of this is spot on. You can pick it up cheaper. Now I picked this one up at eBay, far cheaper as the retail price. So absolutely delighted with it. So I'm going to have to say this is a highly recommended kit, on the proviso that you understand it's only a highly recommended kit for someone who's got experience in modelling, got experience with AFV Club in particular and their way of building stuff. But if you're going to put the time and effort and patience into this kit, you're going to end up with a fantastic display model with endless opportunities of what you want to do with it. So there we go. That's the review. Any questions, as always, put them down below. I always read them and take time to answer them, and I really appreciate anybody who takes time to ask me a question. And if you like what you see on this channel, please consider liking and subscribing. It always gives me a bit of a boost to see folk are interested in what I'm doing, and gives me the drive to keep going. So until next time, guys, stay safe, happy modelling, and we'll see you again soon.